Baricanna, my 2D side-scrolling platformer role-playing game hybrid, has undergone significant change since the last update. I've actually finished every single background, except for shops and a couple of other maybe side story-related stuff, but that's about it. So I'm going to explain how everything is all set up here, just for a reference. This down here is a new addition that I've had since my last video. It explains what your HP and MP are like, shown as your HP and MP indicators. It's based on either the Paladin or Tank class, for which it's based on the level for which you're intended to be for the given area, in this case Horina Plains. It's also based on not getting any potions at all, upgrading your equipment, and using something that is not a staff for a weapon type. Everything else is more or less about the same. You will get to see how this grows and even changes. And exclusive to the developer version is this debug panel over here. This is the X position, horizontal, which is this, and notice that it's in hexadecimal. This is the vertical position, the up and down. This is the screen position, which happens when I'm scrolling along. And this is the vertical of the screen as well, which is about the same to go with it. You might also notice I got the speed here as well. The F's means it's negative, and the zeros means it's positive. So, as far as the background goes, this is the cloud deck, which is kind of like wavy cloud sort of thing. These are intended to be like fluffy clouds, nice and simple for the most part. I'm kind of keeping things simple for the most part, but I do intend on having a graphical update to go with it. This is a castle. Got the little towers of some sort in the back here. Baricanna emblem. And you got a drawbridge over here with some flags on top. Hay bale here. This is a fence and a closer variant of that. These are mountains, and of course being plains, rolling hills are a classic to go with that. This is a river, and it's filled with a lot of silt, so you can see the murkiness of it. And of course you got the shores on each side, and then of course more hills here. But it's, of course, being a side-scroller, expect some parallax to go with it. Notice how slow these mountains were moving as well. They were very slow moving, which, unlike most other 2D games of the kind of retro eras, I focus a lot more on getting a better sense of scale. This is a barn, plenty of hay bales, which is kind of where the hay bales came from. Here's a horse, like a feeding or watering kind of area. And you got a cow over here, like your classic black and white dairy cow kind of association. And over here is the end of the level area. And in various areas, you'll also be transferring into other areas for which you can always keep returning to the same area again. Somewhere around like in here or so, give or take, this is an entrance to Helina Forest. This is the lower entrance. Up above here a fair bit, there is also kind of like an upper entrance to the area. That's just in different areas. And up here quite a ways, went up a little too high, but around here is about where Mount Celice is, the entrance to that area. I'm not saying where the boss is, because you'll want to find that out, or where keys are, but around here is where our so-called rat's nest is. You'll find a bunch of rats and bats in that little cave-like area. And of course there's also the entrance to Tarin Crypt in there too, which is another area. And way over at the very beginning area, you will encounter the entrance. Okay, why did that just suddenly shift over? It was like nice and straight here like this, but then it was starting to move over here and then jerked back. That's because there's a scroll speed limit that I've implemented to replicate the classics, the retro games. However, you can disable that. I just have it enabled so you can get a sense on what 32 pixels per frame scrolling speed is, which is actually kind of difficult to get in some areas. But that aside, over here is Castle Baricanna entrance, which is actually right where you start everything. So, let me go show you some of the other areas. Welcome to Helina Forest. Of course, being a forest, you would expect a lot of trees to be around. And you might have also noticed that this changed. It's not these little tick marks like this anymore. It's become more like a solid bar. When this gets above 70 on either one of these, the appearance will change. It'll change repeatedly, like I was saying earlier. And of course, you might also notice that the level threshold has also changed. I'm expecting about level 6, give or take. Even if you're level 1, you could still get through, even on standard, pretty well. Level up a little faster when you get the enemies like the flowers and beetles and things like that. But that aside, up here is your familiar cloud deck. Got a bunch of fluffy clouds, very familiar those. Mountains here, you got some hills, and if you can see through the trees, you can see like there's a river sort of thing here. There's more of a river here. And of course the trees, they're pretty close in, so as a consequence, the background also moves on the vertical pretty fast too. Helina trail, so it's like a hiking trail sort of thing. These are ferns, in case you're wondering on that. This is a pathway where hikers can go through, and then of course horse and buggy will be coming through the area as well. And of course then you got your closer in ferns, and what is this? This seems odd. That's because when I get to the point somewhere around here, you'll only see the start of like mid-ground filler sort of stuff. Like objects like these, for example, they're kind of drawn in the back. It's so that way that this can be covered, so that way I can kind of artificially increase the level size a little bit. Otherwise, not really too much here. Hey, these trees are actually moving at a different pace than these. That's really interesting. Of course, if I scroll up a little bit and then just zip along, pushing to that speed limit threshold, and there it is. 32 pixels per frame, in case you're wondering just how fast this is. Yeah, this is a big level area. Very horizontal. After all, if you notice that it doesn't go very far down either. But over here would be Deslust Swamp, or at least a rough idea on where that would be. The entrance to it, that is. And scrolling back to the left a fair bit, somewhere around here is where Tarin Crypt's entrance is. You might want to take note of that approximate location because it is going to be an essential key favorite area. You'll find out later. And going a little more over, this is about where the town of Helentown is. Think of the name Helen like a female's common name. And of course town because it's the town. It's just how I came up with that. And that's basically the main stuff for this area. Of course, remember from Horina Plains where you got the two entrances? Well, that lower entrance, which happens to be about in here, is where if you enter Helina Forest from that lower area, you'll come in about here. But if you enter Helina Forest from that upper area, you'll come in from probably somewhere around here instead. So, next up, Tarin Crypt. Hey, nice lightning bolt there. Well, just so you know, these are actually not really so much in the way of clouds. They're actually ash that's drifting by. It's because, as the intro to the story goes, this area has been hit with like a fire or something, and it's really affected a lot. But you can see the lightning just coming in at random. You never know where that next one's going to be. And of course, you might also notice that the debug panel also has some different information on it. It's the timers associated with the lightning. I tried to get it so that I could make the loop as reasonably long as possible, and I got a little creative with math, and I was able to figure out how to get a 6-hour loop cycle, even though the individual elements are significantly different. This one, there it is. Yep, just as you can see, it just looped over again. And of course, being a crypt, what would you expect to find? Tombstones! Oh no! Yep, in this area, you wouldn't be surprised to find zombies and werewolves and other creeps of the night. Getting scared? And of course, I love how well this bent metallic fence came out. All the weird off angles that it's going in. Yeah, that came out really well. And if I go over to the right a little more, you'll see that there's a manor right in here. There's a bell. Think of like bats coming out of that. Burnt trees. And then, of course, really nothing too much else special going on there. Somewhere around here is where the entrance to Horina Plains would be, give or take a little bit. And then I gotta go a ways over. And right about in here is about where the town of Larine is, except it'll actually be a little up more, somewhere like around here, give or take. That left side of the area map, that's where the entrance from Helina Forest is. And on the other side of this area, this is where Deslust Swamp is. You might also notice that this grew a little bit longer as well, as the level threshold also increased to go with it. This grew a little bit. So, what's the next area, since they're getting a little scared here? Deslust Swamp, another forest kind of area. And you might have noticed that these bars have definitely gotten considerably longer again. And level 17, really nothing too much special here. Got your familiar cloud deck and fluffy clouds. You got mountains over here. Got your familiar trees here. Kind of a somewhat fast-paced vertical scrolling background here for this one. You got the edge of the swamp over here. There's kind of a background swamp in there, if you can kind of make that out. It's kind of hard to see it through the trees. And then, of course, then it gets kind of like a shore kind of thing in there. And if you look closely, you can kind of see that. And then it starts the main swamp directly below that, which is where the main area down here starts. And like Helina Forest, you got that familiar different trees, different scroll speeds for the trees here. And of course you got your familiar trail and the path. That's Deslust Trail because it's a different area. And of course a whole bunch of algae all right here, in case you're wondering what all that is. Swim at your own risk. Why would I want to do that? Snakes and stuff, you know. And of course deep mud, so you'll end up drowning and whatnot. So definitely not the kind of thing to be dealing with. That's for sure. But on the left side over here, that's where Helina Forest entrance is. And if I scroll a fair bit over, I will be encountering where the Tarin Crypt entrance is, which is about in here, give or take a little bit. And then a little farther over, you'll find the town of Farissa. That's Farissa, like Marissa, the name, except it's fur at the start, just to be a little more unique. That's about over here. And on the very far right, note how this is a very horizontal level. Yeah, way over here. Over here is where the entrance to Marren Cave is, or one of them anyway. That one will be coming up a fair bit later. But that aside, that's the general area for Deslust. Enjoy the high speed and watch those mountains just barely moving along. This is Mount Celice. Of course, things are a little weird here. Like, what's the deal with these? And these are moving very slowly. If I move the cursor and get some scrolling by, you can kind of get a sense of the distance involved as well. But these are floating islands, and the story during the intro part will explain the backstory behind what these are and what all this up here is. You might also notice that there's a very slight kind of earth curvature effect. These are very distant mountains. They're so distant they have 0 for the scale rift. They don't move at all. Same thing, of course, with the sky here. This is, by the way, a 2, and these are 1s for a sense of the scale here. It's very, not much at all on the horizontal spread. So instead, it's spread out on the vertical. And as you can tell, it's barely even moving. Very close ice cap mountains here. That's a river going by there. Overshot just a little bit. These mountains are a little different. You might also notice that they kind of scroll by a lot faster too. This is a pagoda-style temple sort of thing. This is supposed to have the Baricanna emblem on it, but it's so small it's kind of hard to make out. And you might also be noticing something's a little weird about the HP bar. Like, what happened to it? It shrunk down on the vertical and it's a lot narrower. What happened? And then there's this. Well, when HP exceeds, or MP as well, when it exceeds a 280, those bars up here get condensed down to single little tick marks down here. So that's 280 plus this, which I'm not exactly sure. I'm probably going to guess about 340 for your max HP. And of course, this condensed down into the solid bar as well. But also notice, wasn't I just level 17 before? Now it's 26? That's a huge jump. So why is there a big jump like that? That's because at this point I'm anticipating going after the bosses, the Great Fiends as they're called. When you defeat a boss, you inherit their ability, which can be, there's 12 total abilities that you can inherit from defeated bosses. And certain ones, like high jump for example, will allow you to jump with greater velocity on your initial jumping speed. Then of course there's other ones that like help reduce tolerance to fire or increase your tolerance to fire and various other things like that. Somewhere around here is where the town of Shelly is, and if I go up a fair bit more, and I mean quite a bit more really, it's somewhere around here you'll find the entrance to the upper entrance to Lake Shelly, which is another area that I've yet to cover. And then somewhere probably around here, give or take, this is another entrance to Kriela Plateau. And way up at the very top of the area, you will find something a little different. Remember those islands? Well, there's supposed to be a special gold spring. You may remember that from the sprite sheet post that I've been making. When you use that gold spring, it'll take you up to Skylus Temple, which is yet another one of the areas to cover. There's 12 total areas in this game, and way down at the very bottom, since I kind of forgot to mention those, watching this background just zipping by real slowly. On this side, if you fall down on this edge over here, you will enter Horina Plains. And if you go to over on this side, you will enter kind of like a dead-end area of Lake Shelly, the lower entrance. So, what's this Lake Shelly about? This is Lake Shelly. At first, you might notice that there's some new details on the debug panel over here. These bars grew a little bit longer, and not too much of a difference with the level. That's because Mount Celice doesn't really have too much in the way of enemies. And of course, you got your familiar cloud deck. You got distant mountains here. This level is actually fairly vertical, but it's not as vertical as Mount Celice. So it's got a little more on the horizontal to make up for the difference. Give you a sense on how that scales. And scroll down more, you got some hills here, you got some spruces coming in. And of course, you got your familiar lakes, your lake shore over here. You got your houses, you got sailboats coming in. And of course, as I scroll down even more, hey, that's a really neat looking effect there. That's the waves actually have a 3D effect that I've given to them. And watch my debug panel as I get into a new area. Okay, the water just suddenly changed. Then this got added in. What happened? Well, that's because if you look closely as I'm scrolling along, you can see that there's actually a 3D effect to give you a sense of what the surface of the water is, where it's at. Watching that zipping by, you can't really see too much going on. And of course, if you go under, then things are a little different. You can see the little beams of light poking through. And if you go really far down, to the very bottom of the lake, kind of a muddy bottom sort of thing, you'll see that there's like dirt hills or sort of thing there. A little bit of mud to go with it. But notice I love how well the parallax on this came out, and the color gradient there too. That's really nice. I love how well that came out. But as far as locations on this area goes, there are a lot of entrances. This is like a central area. It's like got many different areas all grouped together. One entrance to Marren Cave is right up kind of in this area, give or take a little bit. And then, of course, up here a bit, this is where the lower Mount Celice entrance is. And way up at the very top is the upper entrance to Mount Celice. That's up here. Of course, I kind of released the button a little too early. And over on the other side, you will find the entrance to Kriela Plateau. That's up over here, give or take a bit. And scrolling back down a fair bit, this is about where the entrance to Enesdi Desert is located, approximately. And the town for the area, Sheldon, is located a fair ways down. It's very close to around here. Pretty close to the waves. Care for go swimming? The desert. Endless sand as far as the eye can see. Even sand dunes, which of course are sand. Nice clear sky to go with it. And, well, it's also not a very vertical level either. There isn't too much of a vertical span. It's also kind of a slow-paced moving background to go with it. But that aside, on the left side over here is the entrance to Lake Shelly. Nothing really special about that, because that's how you enter the area. This is a pyramid, and there's kind of a backstory to it as well. It's to help travelers find their way through the endless desert that all looks kind of more or less the same throughout. Right around here, though, is about the entrance to Larine's Carnival. It's approximately this anyway. And of course, if I go even farther over to the right, a little bit off, but not too bad. And this is about where Vergeltz is, the town, which has got a weird spelling to it. Verjelts. Vergeltz. Yep, and of course, as I continue farther over this way, you will encounter the entrance to Vinneres Coast over here. Really, not much to this area. Ready for a colorful treat? This is Larine's Carnival area for the upper part. If you look very closely, you can see that these stars twinkle. They fade in and out very slightly. It's kind of hard to see, but if you kind of pay attention to this, get a sense on the timing, and then watch something like this white star here, you can see that it's actually fading. It's very, very gradual. You might also notice that there's another tick mark on the HP indicator here. That's 280 plus another 280 plus whatever this is. So you're probably looking at almost 700 HP at this point. And as I scroll down, you'll see lanterns calmly drifting along. This is where you enter the area from, over here approximately. That's from Enesdi Desert. Scroll down more, and you, of course, being in the desert area, you wouldn't be surprised to see a bunch of sand going out as far as you can see, and some mountains intermixed to go with that. Some more lanterns. If you look closely, that orange area here is a flame. It's lighting this up, which is color tinted. Being a game set in medieval times, you got to think about medieval technology and how things were at the time. Scrolling by, you can see everything zipping by for a sense of the scale. And this level is actually about the most square-shaped level there is. And there's actually a little something with these that I don't know if you'd be able to figure it out, but there's actually a secret little thing about them. I'll just tell you that, and that's it. Scrolling down more, you can see more sand dunes, and the carnival ground itself starting to come into the view. The lanterns here, got kind of medium distance ones. These ones just bob up and down continuously. Then you got a Ferris wheel sort of thing here, but it's not animated, and that's intentional because of one thing. As per the story, the carnival is closed, and you'll understand why. I'll give you a hint. Look to what happened with Mount Celice, or look to Skylus Temple when I show you that. Farther down, you can see the torches, and then you can see little tents over here, little animated flames to go with that. You got table and chairs, and of course, between each of these torches, you'll see the flags going through the spectrums, kind of like Carnivalista almost in a way. And just for your reference, somewhere around here is about where the entrance to Vinneres Coast is. And over on this side is where the town of Leicester is. Right around here is Leicester. The upper area, as I may have mentioned earlier, is about where, diagonally going off, but this is where you enter the area from Enesdi Desert. Pretty colorful, isn't it? Need a tropical vacation getaway? Come to Vinneres Coast and rest away at our exclusive resort. This is a cloud deck, nothing special here because that's common across many areas. And then of course you got your fluffy clouds, you got your mountains here, and then you've got the beautiful islands here. Oh my goodness, that is so beautiful. I love how well that came out. And this is just for a sense on the scale and also to give you a sense on the level size as well. And like Lake Shelly, of course, you got your 3D effect with the water to go with that. And being a tropical kind of thing, what would you expect to find under those waves? A coral reef, right? Well, that's exactly what there is. You got your light waves going through here, a little stronger effect than what Lake Shelly has, and you got tropical fish sort of stuff. You got your reef right in here, you got a cliff face here, and also a pirate ship. You got your bow of the ship right here, you got the crow's nest, your pirate flag, the stern's broken off right in here, and of course a classic treasure chest associated with your usual pirates at the times. Just a kind of a tropical pirate theme sort of stuff. So, care to relax away? And of course you might notice that the HP indicator's got another mark on here. That's 280, 280, 280, plus this. That's over 900 HP. And MP is getting really close to starting to get over that way too. And of course, as far as locations go, on the very far side over here is the entrance from Enesdi Desert. And scrolling quite a ways over, you'll find the entrance to Kriela Plateau, which is really up at the very top area, somewhere around here. And then Darusin, the town, that would be somewhere very close to the waves. It's right kind of about here, give or take. It's pretty close to that. And then from Larine's Carnival, you remember that entrance, right? That's right over here. So you enter from over here from the Carnival. Now watch MP change. You'll see that it gets another mark like these up here, and this bar shrinks down like this. Just watch. From the burning hot tropics to the freezing cold freezer, that is Kriela Plateau. The highlands, basically. Being highlands, of course, on the plateau, you're really close to the clouds. So that's the cloud deck. And of course you got your familiar mountains, you got a glacier here, some hills going by, and farther down you got the other end of the glacier and a river with a bunch of ice just peacefully drifting by, and a nice little whale shape there to go with it. All kinds of just random pieces, and if you look closely you can get a sense of that. A little breakage coming from the glacier there. You enter this area somewhere around here from Lake Shelly, and then going not too much over, about here is where Mount Celice entrance comes in at. And if I scroll a long way over, up a lot more to go with it, this is about where Vinneres Coast entrance is. And then the town of Larine is down quite a ways. That's about in here, give or take. But that's where about Larine is. And if you notice closely, you can see that MP indeed got another tick mark here, exactly like the HP indicator. And of course, HP now has 4 tick marks. What's next? If you thought the tropics are hot, you might want to think about the tropics as being a deep freezer, because this area is way hotter. Marren Cave. So, how is it so hot? Well, up at the very top, you got, well, being a cave, it's stalactites. Nothing really too special about that part. However, when you start scrolling down, that's when things really start cranking up that thermostat, big time. I love that glowing back wall there. That is so well done. And then, this is why it's so hot. Lava. Oh yeah, nice and hot. Really makes the tropics look real cold, I'll tell ya. Now, of course, really not too much else to see here. Support columns for the cave. And that's really about it. You enter the area from Deslust Swamp over about in this area there. And on the very far edge, and I mean very far edge, I gotta go a long way over. Tick tock, still going. Still got a little bit more. But right about in here is where Preglessa is, the town. And from Lake Shelly, the entrance is right over here. Behold, Skylus Temple. If you remember from Mount Celice, you may recall those floating islands hovering above. That's exactly what these are. And of course all those rocks that are also drifting by. And you got your pagoda-style temples here, and I was just moving so you can get a sense of the scale, effectively, and the parallax. You got statues here. That's what those are, in case you're wondering. These are fountains with those little odd parts sticking out. There's another one over here. This, I think I need to fix that. I don't know exactly what's wrong with that, but it's on the other side too, I've noticed. And if you look closely, this part's an under part. That's correct. And at the very bottom here, you got the earth curvature effect, which really gives you a sense on just how high up this is. Got distant mountains that are just so far down there. And of course all that debris. Paunil's magic is really powerful for getting islands hovering up so high like that. If you fall on the side, on this side, you will enter Mount Celice. And if you do that same thing on the other side, you will enter Lake Shelly. But the Lake Shelly entrance is only a one-way trip. You can't go back the other way. So do keep that in mind. And also notice how the HP is sure getting a lot of marks on it. But that's all there is to this area. There is actually no town for Skylus Temple. This is not Skylus Temple itself, though. Do keep that in mind. Skylus Temple itself is actually part of the level design. But there's more yet. When you defeat all 14 great fiends, for which 2 areas have 2 great fiends together in one, you are to go to Castle Baricanna, the town, and speak with the king and queen to get a key item. When you do so, however, the game's most powerful monsters will be coming out, and that's the best time to level up. And boy, can you level up a ton. There is a huge amount of potential in Baricanna. Just for reference, this is King Barican, this is Queen Anna, and this is the BA, Baricanna, and like a underscore sort of thing. That's only partially covering it. It's in a way to kind of give a sense of the openness to of the kingdom. And being a town, it's got a different kind of layout, but not all towns are different. It's just that the one for Horina Plains, which you may recognize the background and the same level size, all being the same stuff. That's basically just how that is. Of course, getting this high up in a town is extremely difficult to do, but you can do it. So, just how extreme can Baricanna get? I'll be showing you that next. I'll cover that in a bit. However, when you do get the key item, you'll be on a quest to find 5 final boss keys. These keys are very big in size, and they're blue. They're twice as big as normal. And on top of that, their position is also randomized. In every game, you never know where they're going to be. But if you're looking to get some clues, speak to Kevin Peterson of Larine. He will tell you some really good ideas on where they would be. It's not exact, but it kind of gives you a rough idea. But when you're done finding all those keys, then it's time to deal with Paunil himself, the final boss. This is about the kind of level in which I would be anticipating that you'd be ready for it. That's an awful lot of HP. Look at all those marks of 280s. Of course, instead of going after Paunil, you could, instead, go after leveling up like crazy, and there's a huge amount of grinding potential in this game. Of course, when you're playing on standard difficulty, you don't really need it, but it is kind of a must when you're playing on master, somewhat on advanced. But for beginner and newbie, you can actually pretty easily do a no common enemies type challenge. As in, the only enemies you ever defeat are just the bosses only, the great fiends. And just for reference, at about this kind of level, you'd probably be getting the ultimate accessory by this point. And that ultimate accessory is no joke. It is immensely powerful. How powerful is it? I'll give you a hint. It costs about 30 million gold, when the next most expensive piece of equipment is only 5 million, and then 500,000. That's really taking it really up the extreme. And the HP indicator is also oddly different. What happened here? Well, when you have more than 19,880 HP, the display changes yet again. Remember how it was originally just all these single tick marks really tall? And then it split up to where you have the single tick marks here, and then you got the bar here. Well, when this bar gets full, it collapses into one of these. But if one of these gets full, it collapses into one of these, a set of 10,000. Each one of these is now 200 instead of the 280, because it's been collapsed down more. And yet, this is only just starting, believe it or not. Achieving maximum level takes a very long time to do. Just to get that last level is already 2 hours alone. And just to get the last 100 levels, that's 175 hours of grinding at the fastest rate possible, based on master difficulty, with of course the ultimate accessory. And speaking of ultimate accessory, what happened to the HP gauge again? What's with these little odd marks here? Is that a glitch? No, that's not a glitch. These are discs, another higher tier form of HP. Yeah, it goes another tier higher. These are 10,000s. These are 10,000s here as well. These are 200s. These are 1s. When you get a full set of these, which is 19 of them, that's 200,000. They'll collapse into one of these discs. That is really taking things to an extreme. And yet, even this is not everything. Oh yeah, there's even more on top of this. What's all that gold that you're getting from all those monsters that you keep beating up all the time? Well, all that gold can be used to buy potions at the Lester, or Lakrent and Sheldon also have it. Remember where Lester is, right? There's a potion shop there. Use that gold to buy potions, and with that, you can permanently raise your max stats. How high do the stats go? Well, you're in for a surprise. Your base stat maxes at 999,999, so basically one less than a million. On top of that, you've got the multipliers from the equipment, you've got multipliers from the difficulty setting, you've got multipliers from defenseless mode, you've got multipliers from the accessory on top of all that. Yeah, you just got multipliers stacked on top of multipliers. Ultimately, you can have as much as 10 million HP, which is way more than what you really ever need. But for power levelers, hey, why not? Of course, there is a super boss, ... In case you're wondering what's going on with this is actually demonstrating how the bar actually depletes, just so you can get a visual sense of that. When this one depletes, one of these gets depleted. Once this bar gets depleted, one of these gets depleted. And once this gets depleted, one of these gets depleted. Yeah, it's just a nice little endless loop like that. And you might also notice, why yellow and cyan? What happened there? That's because the display is literally maxed out. It can't go anymore. There's 5 million HP represented from all this. All these 200Ks right here, times 24. Of course, don't forget that you've got another 200K from all these, which, of course, that's only 19, so that's 190,000. Watch the disk disappear. Boom. And that got refilled. But you can see how that goes. But that's 190,000 from this. And then, of course, you got these bars. That's 900. 9800 from that. Then of course you got this bar, that's another 200 right there. I've set it up so that every frame for which this game plays at 240 frames per second, which goes nice on those gaming displays you may have, what'll happen is it's taking 5 off every frame that goes by. So in this video it's actually depleting by 40, because the video is set to 30 frames per second. So it's actually depleting by 40. Frame advance mode, 1 cycle. This is how much is 5 being depleted. This is a full frame at 160 second, basically 60 frames per second. Notice how that it's 4 times as much. And of course at full speed it's another subject. But that's how this basically all works. Next up, working on the gameplay. Oh yeah, actually doing all the monsters, getting the leveling up, all that kind of other fancy stuff. This video was created by Ulillillia. Thank you for watching. And enjoy a sample of my song too, by the way. Yes, that's right, you heard that right. I made a song. Carnival Days and Nights for the Carnival. I'll change to that area just so you can get a feel for it. Carnival Days and Nights by Ulillillia himself. I'll start out with the second half of the day period of the song, and then I'll do the middle period of the night period of the song. And I'll start out with true speed, and then I'll go 90, 80, 70, 110, 120, and 140% speed from there. In case you're wondering, this bottom area is the very best place to be leveling up if you really want raw experience. And this is actually supposed to be a mini-map, but since I don't have levels in just yet, that's not possible to provide. So, here's the song. Enjoy! Which is your favorite speed?